Through the Desert by Henryk Sienkiewicz. Did you like it? Subscribe and recommend to friends. Chapter 16. When they entered the room, they saw the Mahdi lying on a soft couch, surrounded by his wives, two of whom were fanning him with large ostrich feathers. No one else was with him except Caliph Abdullah and Caliph Sharif, for the third Caliph, Ali Ulad Helu, was at this time forwarding soldiers to the north, to Barbary, and to Abu Hamid, places already captured by the dervishes. When the Prophet saw the newcomers, he pushed aside the women and sat up on the couch. Idris, Geber, and the two Bedouins fell on their faces and then knelt with their hands on their chests. The Greek made a sign to Staś to do the same, but the boy pretended not to see this. He merely bowed and remained standing. His face had become pale, but his eyes shone brightly, and from his whole appearance, the proud way he held up his head and his compressed lips, it could readily be seen that something was uppermost in his mind, that he was no longer undecided and frightened, but that he had made a firm resolution which nothing in the world could tempt him to break. The Greek seemed to comprehend the situation, for his face wore a very anxious expression. The Mahdi took in both children at a quick glance, and his fat face lighted up with its customary smile. Then turning to Idris and to Geber, he asked, "You have come from the far north?" Idris touched the floor with his forehead. "It is so, O Mahdi. We belong to the Dangali tribe, and therefore we have left our homes in Fayum in order to come and kneel down before your blessed feet. I saw you in the desert. It is a terrible road, but I sent an angel who watched over you and protected you from death at the hands of unbelievers. You did not see him, but he was there watching over you. We thank thee, Savior. And so you have brought the children for Smain to enable him to exchange them for his own offspring, whom the Turks are detaining together with Fatima in Port Said. You only will we serve. He who serves me works out his own salvation, and thereby you open the way to paradise for yourselves. Fatima is my relative, but let me tell you that when I conquer the whole of Egypt, then my relatives and their successors will obtain their freedom. Then, O Blessed One, do what you wish with the children." The Mahdi half closed his eyelids, opened them again, smiled good-naturedly, and beckoned to Staś. "Come nearer, boy." Staś advanced with an energetic, soldier-like step, bowed for the second time, then straightened up stiff as the string of a bow and waited, looking directly into the eyes of the Mahdi. "Peace be with you. Are you pleased to come to us?" "No, Prophet. We were carried away from our fathers against our wills." This frank answer created a sensation not only for the ruler, who was accustomed to being flattered, but on the others present as well. Caliph Abdullah frowned. The Greek bit his lips and began to twist his fingers, but the Mahdi never ceased smiling. "But," he said, "on the other hand, you are now at the fountain of truth. Will you drink at this source?" A short silence ensued, and the Mahdi, thinking that the boy had not understood the question, repeated it more plainly. "Will you accept my teaching?" Whereupon Staś, with the hand that he held to his breast, without attracting attention, managed to make the sign of the cross, just as though he were going to spring from a sinking ship into deep water. "Prophet," he said, "I am not familiar with your teaching, so if I were to accept it, I should do so only from fear, like cowards and base persons. And do you wish cowards and base persons to accept your faith?" While he was speaking, he continued to look the Mahdi unflinchingly in the eye. The silence that ensued was so great that the buzzing of the bees could be heard. Besides this, something very unusual happened. The Mahdi was embarrassed for a moment and could not think what reply to make. Stretching out his hand, he grasped a bottle gourd filled with water and honey and began to drink, but evidently only to gain time and to hide his embarrassment. Illustration: the brave boy, a true descendant of the defenders of Christianity, stood with his head erect awaiting his sentence. And the brave boy, a true descendant of the defenders of Christianity, stood with his head erect awaiting his sentence. On his sunken cheek, tanned by the desert wind, there was now a tinge of pink, his eyes shone brightly, and a thrill of exaltation passed through his delicate body. "Every one," he thought, "has accepted his teaching, but I have neither renounced my faith nor sacrificed my soul." And the fear of what might happen and would happen remained buried in his breast, and he was filled with joy and pride. Then the Mahdi, putting down the bottle gourd, asked, "So you refuse to accept my teaching?" "I am what my father is, a Christian." "Whosoever closes his ears to the heavenly voice," said the Mahdi slowly and in a changed tone of voice, "is nothing more than wood to be cast into the fire." Caliph Abdullah, who was known for his severity and cruelty, showed his white teeth like a wild animal and said, "This boy's answers are rude. Therefore, sir, punish him or permit me to do so." "All is over," thought Staś to himself. But the Mahdi, who was always desirous that the fame of his mercy might spread not only among the dervishes, but throughout the whole world, thought that too severe a sentence, especially against a small boy, might be bad for his reputation. For a while he passed the glass beads of the rosary between his fingers, and then said, "No, these children were carried off on Smain's account. Therefore, though I have nothing to do with unbelievers, they must be sent to Smain. This is my wish." "It shall be done," answered the Caliph. Then the Mahdi pointed to Idris, Geber, and the Bedouins. "These people, O Abdullah, you must reward in my name, for they have completed a long and dangerous journey in order to serve God and myself." Then he nodded as a sign that the audience was at an end, and in like manner he ordered the Greek to leave him. When the latter reached the place of prayer, which was now dark, he took hold of Staś by the arm and vented his rage and despair by shaking him. "Cursed one, you have endangered the life of this innocent child," he said, pointing to Nell. "You have ruined yourself and perhaps Nell too." "I could not act otherwise," answered Staś. "You could not. Remember that you are about to take a second journey, which will be 100 times worse than the first. It means death. Do you understand? In Fashoda, the fever will be the end of you in a week's time. The Mahdi knows why he is sending you to Smain. We might also have died had we remained in Omdurman. That is not so. If you had lived in the Mahdi's house, in prosperity and in comfort, you would not have died, and he was prepared to take you under his wing. I know that he intended to do so, but you have shown how ungrateful you are to me for having interested myself in you. Now you can do what you please. In a week, Abdullah will send the camel post to Fashoda, and during this week you can do what you please. You will never see me again." With these words he went away, but soon returned. He was talkative, as all Greeks are, and felt the necessity of giving vent to his opinions. He was thoroughly angry, and wanted to fire his rage at Staś's head. He was not cruel, nor had he a bad heart, but he wanted the boy to realize the terrible responsibility he had incurred by not profiting by his warning and advice. "Who would have prevented you from being a Christian at heart?" he said. "Do you think I am not a Christian? But I am no fool. You have preferred to make a display of false courage. Up to this time I have been able to be of great service to the white prisoners, but henceforth I cannot do anything for them because the Mahdi is angry with me too. They all will perish, and your little companion in suffering will surely die. You have killed her. In Fashoda even grown people succumb like flies to the fever, and how can such a child escape? When you are forced to walk alongside of the horses and camels, she will die the very first day, and you will be to blame for it. You ought to be happy now, you Christian." He walked away, and they turned off from the place of prayer and went through narrow, dark lanes toward the tents. They walked a long time, for the town was very large. Nell, who was greatly overcome by fatigue, hunger, fear, and the terrible sensations she had experienced all day, stopped to rest, but Idris and Geber pushed her ahead faster. After a while, however, her feet absolutely refused to move a step farther. Then Staś, without thinking much about it, picked her up in his arms and carried her. On the way he wanted to speak to her, wanted to justify himself by telling her that he could not have acted otherwise than he had, but his mind was a blank, and he could only repeat over and over again, "Nell! Nell! Nell!" and pressed her to him, unable to say another word. After they had gone a short distance, Nell was so tired that she fell asleep in his arms, and so he walked silently through the quiet of the sleepy little streets that were disturbed only by the conversation of Idris and Geber. Their hearts were happy, which was lucky for Staś, for otherwise they might have wanted to punish him again for having answered the Mahdi so rudely. But they were so absorbed with what had happened to them that they were quite unable to think of anything else. "I felt ill," said Idris. but the sight of the Prophet made me well again. He is like a palm in the desert and cold water on a warm day, and his words are like ripe dates, answered Geber. Nur el-Tadhil lied when he told us that the Mahdi would not admit us to his presence. He did admit us, and he blessed us, and told Abdullah to reward us. He will certainly reward us well, for the will of the Mahdi is sacred. Bismillah, may it be as you say, said one of the Bedouins, and Geber began to dream of innumerable camels, horned cattle, horses, and sacks filled with piastres. Idris awakened him from his dreams by pointing to Staś, who was carrying the sleeping Nell, and asked, "And what are we to do with that wasp and this fly?" "Ha! Smain must give us an extra reward for them. I am sorry they did not fall into the hands of the Caliph, who would have taught this young dog what it means to bark at the truth and the chosen one of God." "The Mahdi is merciful," answered Idris, and then after a while he continued, "Still, it is certain that if Smain has them both in his hands, neither the Turks nor the English will kill his children and Fatima." "Then perhaps he will reward us?" "Yes, so Abdullah's post is to take them to Fashoda, and a heavy load will be off our shoulders, and when Smain returns here we will demand a reward from him." "So you think we should remain in Omdurman?" "Allah, have you not had enough traveling in that journey from Fayoum to Khartoum? It is quite time to take a rest." The tents were now close by, but Staś walked more slowly, for his strength was becoming exhausted. Even though Nell was light, he felt her weight more and more. The Sudanese, who were impatient to lie down and sleep, shouted at him to hurry up, and at last they pushed him along by striking him on the head with their fists. The boy bore everything in silence, his one thought being always to protect his little sister. And it was only when one of the Bedouins gave him a blow that nearly knocked him down that he said through his clenched teeth, "We shall reach Fashoda alive." This kept the Arabs from doing further violence, for they were afraid to disobey the commands of the Prophet. But they were even more affected by the fact that Idris was suddenly seized with such a severe attack of dizziness that he had to lean on Geber's arm, and although the pain ceased after a while, the Sudanese became alarmed and said, "Allah! Something must be the matter with me. Have I been seized with some illness?" "You have seen the Mahdi, and therefore you will not be ill," answered Geber. They finally reached the barracks, and summoning all his strength, Staś put the sleeping Nell in the care of old Dinah, who, though indisposed herself, nevertheless prepared a very comfortable resting place for her little lady. After the Sudanese and the Bedouins had swallowed a piece of raw meat, they threw themselves down as heavy as logs on the cloth rugs. Staś was given nothing to eat, but Dinah pushed a handful of soaked maize toward him, a small quantity of which she had stolen from the camels. But he was neither sleepy nor hungry. The burden that rested on his shoulders was really more than heavy. He felt that he had done right, and even if he forfeited the goodwill of the Mahdi, which one could purchase by denying one's faith, he knew his father would be very proud of his decision, and that it would make him very happy. But at the same time he thought that he had endangered the life of Nell, his companion in misfortune, and his beloved sister, for whom he would willingly have given the last drop of his blood. And so when everyone was asleep, he sobbed as if his heart would break, and lay on the piece of cloth rug, weeping for a long time like a child, which, after all, he still was.
Remember to subscribe.